My ex-husband and his new wife demanded custody of my daughter after disappearing from her life for 8 months. I'm 33. I was married for 8 years to Peter, who is now 39. We divorced a year ago after he admitted to having an affair for about 3 years with his ex-girlfriend from college. I never expected this, especially since we had a 4-year-old daughter. He kept the affair going even after she was born. It was beyond unacceptable, so we decided to divorce. I chose to raise our daughter alone. A few months after the divorce, he married that same ex, Mandy, 38. I found out about the wedding from her friends, because obviously we no longer spoke. I managed to get full custody, and he only visited on weekends, and even then under my supervision. But after the wedding, he stopped showing up entirely. I was fine with that. No more awkward silence while he tried to play with our daughter as I sat in another room holding myself back from throwing him out during the divorce process. He came on some weekends, and I allowed it because our daughter enjoyed the time. But when he disappeared, I didn't reach out. It's been almost a year since the divorce, and I hadn't seen him in about 8 months. In that time, I was just working and taking care of my child. That's all my life revolved around. Last weekend, Peter suddenly showed up at my daughter's place, and we had a very tense conversation. When I opened the door, I thought he came to see her, but he said he wanted to talk to me. Strange, since we had no reason to speak for almost a year, but I still let him talk. He said his wife Mandy was going to sue me if I didn't give them full custody soon. She believed that as a single mother, I couldn't provide a good life for my daughter, whereas they could, and that I was deliberately depriving her of a normal childhood. She claimed this was grounds to accuse me of neglect. Peter stood at my door demanding I hand over my daughter right then, adding they'd start legal proceedings soon because, according to his wife, I was unfit to raise a child alone. I exploded, slammed the door in his face, and told him to get lost unless he wanted me to call the police. I couldn't believe he thought he could just show up after almost a year of ignoring her and demand custody. Mandy's threats didn't bother me much. They were absurd. She couldn't just sue me for supposed neglect simply because I'm a single mom. I wasn't scared of that, but I was scared Peter would return and remind our daughter of his existence. It had taken me a lot of effort to help her forget him without telling her the full truth, and I couldn't go through that again. I also hated the thought of him having any access to me, because what he said last time was seriously unsettling. He didn't even understand how abnormal his proposal was, so I decided to move in with my parents for a while until I felt safe again. Conveniently, our nanny could also take a few days off. 2 days later, I moved in with my parents and stayed there. After that, Peter didn't contact me until the day before yesterday when he showed up at my parents' house. He knew it was the only other place I might be, but with my mom and dad there, I felt more confident and ready to fight. My daughter was asleep upstairs with my mom watching her, so I could say whatever I wanted. He looked upset and said they weren't going to sue, and even if they wanted to, they couldn't. But he still thought it was unfair that I got full custody just because he cheated. He admitted the real reason he came back was because he and Mandy felt empty without my daughter in their lives. Even though Mandy isn't her biological mother, she had met her several times while we were still married. When he took our daughter out, they often saw Mandy, so they started to think of themselves as her parents too. Mandy believed she could be a good stepmother if I gave her the chance. Peter said it was unfair for me to demand full custody knowing he had no chance at joint custody. Our daughter is still very young, plus he cheated for 3 years before confessing. One of the main reasons he didn't get full custody was his work. It demanded long hours and frequent travel, meaning he couldn't personally care for her. As for Mandy, I barely knew her, so she had no grounds for custody regardless of her relationship with Peter. The most his lawyer could get was visitation rights. I don't see how any of this is my fault. He destroyed his chances at joint custody by cheating. His affair played a huge role in court, and after the divorce he just gave up and agreed to my full custody. I truly don't get why he blames me. He said he just wanted to reconnect with his daughter, and Mandy did too. That's why they came asking for another chance. He tried to convince me it would benefit our daughter in the long run, warning I'd regret it if I didn't allow them contact now because someday she might ask why her father wasn't part of her life and all the blame would fall on me. He insisted that despite cheating, he had always been a good father, and Mandy desperately wanted to see her at least one more time. I didn't know what to say, but I was absolutely certain I didn't feel comfortable having them around her. I have zero trust in them. My husband betrayed me and lied for 3 straight years. I still haven't forgiven him. Mandy was complicit in that deception the whole time. So after everything they did, their request to be in my daughter's life seemed absurd. I told Peter the past couldn't be changed, and it was time to accept that our daughter was no longer his. He'd been absent for 8 months. It was hard enough explaining his absence to her once. I wouldn't do it again just because he and his wife suddenly decided they wanted to play parents. Then I told him to leave and shut the door. He left. But since then, he's been texting nonstop, begging for a chance, insisting our daughter needs him as much as she needs me, and warning I'll regret my decision when she grows up and blames me for refusing now. It's gotten to the point where I'm questioning whether I'm doing the right thing by keeping them out of her life after my ex cheated and erased us from his for 8 months. Before we continue, I suggest you leave your thoughts in the comments. Right now, my opinion is twofold, from a mother's perspective and from a state or government perspective. As a mother, I completely support her and would probably do the same. It would be extremely unpleasant if such a father reappeared after 8 months. But from the perspective of the state, I think a father should still have some opportunity to regain custody, not full, but at least some visitation. Yes, people make mistakes. Cheating is unpleasant, but it's still his daughter. Even if he was gone for 8 months, that doesn't mean he can't be in her life afterward. Mandy obviously has no connection to the girl in any way. So, I'm waiting for your opinion, and now let's move on to the update. Update 1. I decided not to let him back into our lives. I was crazy to even consider it, but I think it happened. In the heat of emotion, seeing him for the first time in so long threw me off. But no, it's not happening. I talked to my parents about how I felt, and they were firmly against any contact. They said he's a horrible person who ruined my life and destroyed my chances for future happiness with his lies and cheating for 3 damn years. 2 days after my post, most comments advised me never to let him back in and to get a restraining order. I think I will if he shows up again. He's not the type to give up. I've already contacted my lawyer, and we're trying to terminate his parental rights because he clearly doesn't deserve to be a father. A father who can abandon his child for months without explanation and return only when it suits him is not someone you can trust. I also don't know what he was doing during those 8 months, so it's strange he thinks I'd welcome him back whenever he feels like it. Too bad for him. Life doesn't work that way. I've blocked him everywhere because his last messages, where he tried to play the victim, only disgusted me. He wrote as if I were the villain who cruelly took his daughter away out of selfishness, as if he hadn't cheated and vanished. I can't believe I even wavered for a second because of his sudden appearance. Apparently, I'm not coping as well as I thought, so I'll take advice given here and look for a therapist. It'll take time, but maybe I'll finally stop replaying his betrayal in my head. Update 2. 3 days after my last update, Peter emailed me explaining why he came back after so many months. Even by his standards, it was insane. I don't know what he and Mandy are thinking, but I'm glad I already spoke to my lawyer and I'm one step ahead, because some of what he wrote is deeply concerning. He said that after our divorce was finalized, Mandy told him she didn't want him communicating with me anymore. So, He gave up custody and decided to focus on his new family life. They had originally broken up in college because she was too family-oriented while he wanted a more ambitious woman. But over time they changed, and when they met again a couple of years ago at a reunion, they realized breaking up was a mistake and started the affair. She left her boyfriend, and Peter claims he wanted to tell me, but by the time he worked up the courage, I was pregnant. The longer he delayed, the harder it was to confess. Eventually, even Mandy grew attached to our daughter. It became too messy, and he just let it go on for 3 years until he realized he'd live a life forever unless he came clean. He confessed. We divorced, and he gave up custody to focus on being a good husband to Mandy. But over time, they realized Mandy wanted a family, yet she was now too old to get pregnant without risk. So they decided, instead of having their own child, they'd just ask me to let them co-parent the one Peter already had. That's why he came to me. When intimidation didn't work, he switched to a softer manipulation tactic which also failed. His last chance was to tell me the truth and hope I'd understand their motives. He wrote that Mandy had felt like my daughter's mother during moments they were together without me, and she just wanted to live that life again. The only person who could give it to them was me. It takes mind-blowing arrogance to send such a letter to the woman whose life you both ruined. They lied and cheated for 3 years, including while I was pregnant, and now they expect me to be compassionate so they can build a relationship with the child they tossed aside less than a year ago. They could have adopted or chosen surrogacy, but no, they went for the most idiotic option, pressuring me to hand over my child. We're talking about my daughter, not some dress or toy to pass around. I knew they were both unhinged, but this was too much even for them. I'm glad I've already shown this letter to my lawyer. The idea that they think I'd agree is so absurd it's beyond comprehension. My only goal now is to make sure my daughter and I are safe. I don't trust them one bit, and this letter proved I shouldn't. Update 3. Yesterday my lawyer contacted Peter to tell him the petition to terminate his parental rights had been filed and he needed to sign it ASAP, or else there'd be a new custody trial which nobody would want. He didn't take it well. Today, just a few hours ago, Peter and Mandy showed up at my parents' house right as I was leaving for work. I told them to get off the property or I'd call the police. They stepped outside but refused to leave. Mandy said I was destroying my daughter's future because everyone knew I couldn't raise her alone, and my selfishness was depriving her of her only chance at a real family. I blew up and yelled at her at the top of my lungs. She had no right to tell me what my daughter needs or what family is. She destroyed my family with my husband's help, and now they want to play happy family with my daughter? Even a psych ward patient would see how absurd that is. Yes, I can raise my daughter alone. I work and earn enough to give her the life she deserves. Maybe someday I'll remarry and she'll have a stepfather, but right now she needs only me. They were the ones who cut contact for a year because she wasn't important to them. Now suddenly I'm not a good mother? I told them to leave because I was late for work, but Mandy threw a tantrum in the street, sat down in the road and said she wouldn't move until I let her see my daughter. Peter just sat next to her. If I hadn't been so angry, I might have laughed. My dad finally called the police, and while we waited, they kept arguing and threatening to protest against me for denying my daughter a happy life. That word, denying, triggered me because I know I'm doing everything I can for her. I'm sure she'll one day appreciate that I didn't let her unstable father interfere. Who's to say she'd even be safe with them? When the police came and removed them, they still didn't see how insane they were acting. They threatened to come back and not let me keep them from their daughter. That honestly scared me on a whole new level. I decided to stay home because their stunt left me paranoid. I also filed for a restraining order today. It should have happened long ago. Soon I'll be moving to a new apartment because no address Peter knows feels safe anymore. Update 4. I've moved to a new apartment, and thankfully Peter has no idea where I live. I also got the restraining order, and now I officially have full custody. In the past few weeks, I've been able to keep my sanity and finally escape this absurd nightmare. I don't know what Peter and Mandy are doing now. And I've told all my friends I never want to hear anything about them again, and they're not to tell them anything about me. The last few weeks have been stressful. Peter kept messaging me from different numbers, sometimes disappearing, then reappearing, while Mandy spread nasty rumors. I'm sure they tried to ruin me, but they failed. My daughter is fine, I'm fine, and that's all that matters. She's my whole family, and I'm hers. Well, that's all. Write your opinion in the comments. Watch our previous video. Be sure to subscribe to our channel if for some reason you haven't done so yet. And good luck to you.